Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lonnie Hunt with Deep East Texas Council of Governments, or DetCOG, and we are here to talk about a really important subject for Nacogdoches County and all of our region, and that is the 2020 census. And I'll let the rest of our crew introduce themselves, and then we want to share some important information with you and ask for your help.
Hello, my name is Vic Waller. I am actually the regional coordinator for this DetCOG project that we have going on. We have a very good group of 12 county coordinators that I'm actually in charge of. And each day we go out and try to make a difference in getting people to all join in, and that everybody counts. And that's one thing we want to stress today is how important all this is. And I want to tell you, it's been quite a ride. It was really good when we started out because we had so many civic meetings to go to. We were involved in all the FFA projects and all the things with the school, and then the pandemic hit. And we don't want to use that as an excuse, but it did kind of tamper us down a little bit and made it a little bit more of a challenge. But we're up and going again, and just wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about, what all we're doing.
Hello, my name is Dee Flanagan. I'm the Nacogdoches County Coordinator. My role is to help ensure that all residents of Nacogdoches County are counted in the 2020 census. We do that by working with the local city, the county, school officials, formal and informal community leaders, in a coordinated We All Count effort.
Good morning. I'm Angela Wiederhold with Point A Media, and we're very honored to work with DetCOG and all of East Texas on the 2020 census.
Good morning. My name's Michele Peck. I'm also with Point A Media, and we have really enjoyed working with DetCOG to help get the word out in our community. One of the things that we're doing is informative videos like this and meetings like these, so we can help spread the word and also answer some questions. Today you're going to have an opportunity to speak with us live following the presentation, but you can also type questions into the chat and we'll be happy to answer them throughout the presentation. And by all means, you can also contact us for more of the information that we're sharing following today's presentation.
I might just add that Point A Media and Angela and Michele have become, they were always very important in this whole strategy campaign, but they've become ultra important because of the pandemic. Our original strategy, like Vic said, was boots on the ground. We were going to have a coordinated campaign, and Point A was going to design a campaign where everything fit together and complemented each other. But our number one effort was going to be boots on the ground, someone like Dee in every county of Deep East Texas, and then Vic there as a regional resource to help them with more support from DetCOG staff. And that all changed when COVID-19 came along because the boots were just not able to get out there and be on the ground. And we still have hopes that as time moves forward, we'll be able to do a little bit more of that. But we had to retool our strategy. And it just made the media campaign that Point A has developed and coordinated for us so much more important. I want to tell you just very briefly a little bit about DetCOG, because everyone seems to have heard about DetCOG, but a lot of people don't really know who we are and what we do. We are a political subdivision of the state of Texas, so we're a governmental entity, but we're not another layer of government. We don't have the ability to tax anybody. We don't have the ability to enforce any or make any ordinances or laws. We are an association of the local governments within our 12 county Deep East Texas region. And above all, we are an association of, by, and for these local governments, cities, counties, school districts, river authorities, various other special districts around our region. We bring and by the way, membership in DetCOG is voluntary. You don't have to, the county doesn't have to be a member of DetCOG. Fortunately, all of our counties are, and almost all of our cities are, and almost all of our school districts are, but it's voluntary. We're here to help these local governments. We're here to provide services to their citizens that they couldn't do on their own, simply because it wouldn't be feasible. A lot of the things we do in the way of direct services to people, because of the economy of scale, it's just not feasible to deliver these services to one rural county. But by combining our efforts and working together, it becomes more feasible, and we're able to provide more services to all of Deep East Texas than what our individual members would be able to do on their own. And we're also able to do it a lot more efficiently than they could possibly do it on their own because of the economy of scale. So we really represent city of Nacogdoches and Nacogdoches County and Nacogdoches ISD and all the other garrison and all the other local entities within Nacogdoches County and within this 12 county region. We're not, I want to stress this up front, we're not taking the census. DetCOG is not the official census takers for Deep East Texas. Our role is to support and encourage our people to participate because it is so important and there is so much at stake for the next 10 years if we don't get everyone counted. So we were very fortunate that some private foundations around the state, the largest one was the Hogg Foundation at the University of Texas in Austin, saw the need in specific areas of Texas that are hard to count populations. We're one of them. They saw the need to invest some dollars to help support this process. And that's why we're here. We're not going to come knocking on your door to ask you to fill out a census form. We are going to ask you to fill out that census form, but we're doing this in a capacity of it's good for our region and we need to comply and participate, not because we're the official federal government census process. So with that said, all we're really asking people to do is give 5 minutes of your time. Now, if you have a large family, it may take a little more than 5 minutes. I did my census online. I'm the only person in my household. It probably took me 3 minutes. But for your typical couple, or maybe a couple that has one child at home, 5 or 6 minutes is all it's going to take. That investment you make, I know it may be hard to conceive this, but later on I'll come back and throw some numbers at you that were eye-opening to me and maybe will be eye-opening to you about how your little 5-minute investment to participate in the census can truly have a multi-million-dollar impact on Nacogdoches County.
Good morning. It's never been more important for our Deep East Texas communities to raise our collective voices to ensure that the 2020 census is fair and accurate and that all people are counted. The 2020 census matters for our hospitals and healthcare facilities and for public safety, first responders, police officers, and firefighters. Much of our federal tax money that we send to Washington comes back to Texas in accordance with census calculations and supports public safety, hospitals, transportation, and housing. Deep East Texas needs to be fully counted in the 2020 census so that we get all of the funding for those population-based federal programs that our communities need. An undercount of Texas population by even 1% could result in a $300 million loss per year over the next decade in federal funding. I don't need to tell this group how important roads are to our entire community, especially with I-69 paving the road to new economic opportunities for all businesses. Getting a 100% accurate count in this census is very important for the growth of our business community. We all know how heavy our traffic has become. We know the pressure means the roads and bridges in our area will need widening and repaving. An accurate count is also critical to get our fair share of federal funding for these projects. Think of the many federal, regional, and local grants, contracts, and programs that are based on population numbers. Think about how those population counts affect the decision-making process about whether a new business chooses to locate in East Texas. They count on the ease of transportation, they count on the community and the road infrastructure. Right now, the Nacogdoches County Census count is only at 47%. That means that 53%, over half of the federal funding that we should get, won't come to Nacogdoches County unless we improve our count. And we know living in Deep East Texas, it's wonderful. We're a rural community, but we are designated by the census as a hard to count area because it's just plain hard to get out to some of the communities and to educate and inform all of our citizens about the importance of the census. And that's really where you come in. We need our local businesses to help us get that information out. And it's all more important now because of COVID, because of the fact we haven't been able to have all those get out the count events that were scheduled in our areas. We're relying on community partners and relying on those folks just like you to help us. Texas has experienced rapid growth since the last census in 2010, which reflects, the strength of our great state. If our communities, and that means you and me, work hard to encourage others to complete the census and we're fully counted, experts believe that Texas could gain up to 3 additional seats in Congress. More seats mean more influence in legislation. The numbers from the 2020 census will determine the amount of federal funding distributed to states for programs that impact schools, students, and families. Census-guided federal spending programming that impacts schools and students include Title I grants to local education agencies, the National School Lunch and Breakfast Programs, special education grants, career and technical education grants, the Title V foster care program, Section 8 housing assistance, Head Start programs, and more. The 2020 census determines how those billions of dollars in federal funding support our most vulnerable populations, those with disabilities, the elderly, the poor, and children. One of the hard to count populations is children. For young East Texas children, 30% of children under 5, which represents about 500,000 young children, live in hard to count areas, hard to count neighborhoods, which puts them at high risk for being missed in the 2020 census. And if we miss those children now, we miss them for 10 years. Our hard to count communities will require more support and targeted outreach to get a complete count. And that means that you and I need to step up and reach these folks in the hard to count areas.
Look, there are so many good reasons for people to complete their census, but some of the reasons might seem hard to grasp. And so when we started this campaign, we said, what are 4 things that if we manage to get these 4 points across to folks here in Nacogdoches that could help us move this project forward? And we wanted to make sure these were things that made sense in English and in Spanish, and that could be equally understood across a lot of different groups of folks. And the very first thing that we want to communicate is that it's confidential to take your census. Nobody is using this information from your particular address in another way, shape, or form. We're simply counting numbers. There is an address in this area with 4 people. And so that confidentiality is really, really key to know that these numbers aren't going elsewhere. Secondly, it's convenient. And this year, more than ever before, it's super convenient to complete your census online. Like we've talked about, 5, 6, 7 minutes, and you could be done. You could also call it in via the phone, and we'll give you that phone number later. And we have that available on the DetCOG website. In addition, when you're accessing the census via the website or via the phone, you can change it to a number of languages. And I think that's super helpful that we are not restricting barriers to getting this information in. We're just looking for those numbers. And all of this is much easier than sitting down with somebody when they come to your door if they don't receive your form via the mail or if they don't receive your online census count. Next, we wanted to make sure everyone knows, and I think Angela did a great job of explaining this, and Lonnie too, that it is crucial to our community that we're counted. In no other time than now do we have an awareness of, say for example, our healthcare system and how important it is for a community to have access to critical care that comes with that's distributed based on the number of folks that are counted here. And so this information that we're counting now is going to be the information that we use for the next decade to estimate and track folks here and services that Nacogdoches County receives. Following, the next thing is a sense of community pride. We're all proud to live here in Nacogdoches County. Let's make sure we let other people know. And then there's a bonus point that we hope our information gets across, and it's something we've all talked about, especially as we've all shared sacrifices during this pandemic, is that we're all in this together. And if we can all share that we would be better together by counting together, and we can improve Nacogdoches by all being counted, I think that's a great takeaway for us as a community as we're rebuilding and growing in the next couple of months, and again, as this affects us in the next decade.
Dee, you need to unmute your microphone because I know you have some really important stuff to share with us.
Sorry about that. Bottom line, let's make sure Nacogdoches County gets our fair share of federal dollars that comes back to our community. We need your help. We need your business to partner with us to get a complete count for Nacogdoches County. Census partners are vital to ensuring a complete and accurate count. As trusted voices in the community, you play a key role in raising awareness that the 2020 census is easy, is safe, and important.
All right, I'll jump back in here. I think we have some 2010 and 2020 data for Nacogdoches County coming up next. This is from the, well, this actually shows at in the middle of the screen there, the 2010 self-response rate from Nacogdoches County was 60%. So far in 2020, it's running about 47.6%. It inches up just a little bit almost every day, but it's still less than 50%. Now, what is self-response rate? Well, that just means that 10 years ago, 60% of the people in Nacogdoches County voluntarily responded to their census, filled out their questionnaire, mailed it in. I don't even remember if we had an internet option. I don't think we did 10 years ago, but 60% of the people responded on their own, and a census enumerator did not have to come knocking on their door, looking for them and asking them to be counted. So far this year, it's less than 50%. There's still plenty of time to get that number on up there, and we need to do it. Why is it so important? I'm going to talk about dollars in just a second, but just the mechanics of getting people counted. We know that a lot of the census enumerators that are going to be coming to knock on these doors are not from our area. They're not familiar with our area. They don't know the back roads of Deep East Texas. They may not realize that what looks like a little pig trail to them is a little road, maybe a private lane that three houses are down that need to be counted. We can't rely on the census enumerators to find everybody. They're going to do the best job they can. We know we will do a much better job and have a much more accurate count if everybody would just voluntarily respond. One good thing in Nacogdoches County, by the way, Angelina County is currently over 50%, so you're trailing them a little bit. And I would like to challenge Nacogdoches County. I'm quite sure that you just would not stand to have Angelina County best you in anything. At the moment, they're running a little ahead of you on the census self-response rate. I'd like to challenge Nacogdoches County to catch up with them and zoom right past them. And of course, you know, I'm going to tell people in Angelina County the exact same thing, but I'd love to see a little competition going. we try on a weekly or about weekly basis to put out the numbers to show everyone how our counties are doing in the self-response. And I hope you'll follow us on social media and look for those things and encourage your neighbors to participate. Now, I want to talk about dollars. By the way, it's so simple. You don't have to get something in the mail to respond to the census. In fact, most people in Nacogdoches County, most people in Angelina County got something in the mail. And that's why your self-response rates are higher, most likely, than most of our other rural counties. We have some counties that are down in the 20% range and 30% range on self-response. But in those counties, the more rural counties of our region, more people did not get anything in the mail than did. But our message to everybody is you don't have to get something in the mail. You don't have to wait for something to be delivered by the post office. You can call in 844-330-2020, or the easiest thing is just log in 2020census.gov, do your census online or on the phone, get it done. You may never get, a lot of people will never get anything in the mail. Now, for the folks who have not gotten stuff in the mail, at some point, we don't know the exact date because of the COVID situation, at some point the census enumerators are going to come around and hang little packets on doorknobs, but we know they're going to miss people. So we're encouraging people not to wait for that. Go online, call in now to do it. And quickly on the money, this may blow your mind, it blows mine. I've got my trusty calculator here. Different states received a different amount of federal funding. Texas, the numbers that I've read indicate for every percent of population, Texas gets about $11 per capita in federal funding that's tied to the census. That's for 1% of the population. So if you do the math for Nacogdoches County, where the Census Bureau estimates we have 65,000 residents, I think there's probably more than that if we can get all of you counted. But if you do $11 per person times 65,000 residents, that's $715,000, and that's just a 1% undercount. That means we got 99% of the people. We still lost $715,000. If you multiply that times 5, and we're only able to count, you know, when I was in school, if I got a 95 or something, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. But 95% on the census is not a grade. If we miss 5% of the population, that's $3.5 million of important services in Nacogdoches County. Now, some of that money will come directly to the county, the city, the school districts, the hospitals. Some of that money will pay for state services, people like our highway patrol officers. That's a state agency, but what would we do without them? If the state of Texas shut down the DPS and all the highway patrolmen away, our cities and counties, no way they could afford to hire enough replacement police officers and sheriff's deputies to make that up. You couldn't afford it as a taxpayer. So we depend on so many services and people right here in our community that work for these various state agencies. And we're talking about potentially losing $3.5 million worth of service for Nacogdoches County. And what makes it even more critical is we get one shot to get this right. The numbers that are counted in the 2020 census, we're stuck with them for 10 years. The Census Bureau does provide annual estimates of population, but that's not what they use when they determine funding. They use the actual number from the last census. So if we undercount in 2020, we're going to lose money every year for 10 more years before we have another chance to come back and get it right. It's just so important.
All right, I'm going to move us forward because we've got about 9 minutes left.
Who do we know in the hard to count areas, Nacogdoches? You know, all of us don't live on Main Street. And there are so many different rural areas actually in Nacogdoches County. How many of you know that not a lot of people have internet connection that live in those rural areas, and they don't get emails like you and I do on an everyday basis. Why are they hard to reach? They're hard to reach because of that very thing of not being able to get emails. And you know, a lot of people don't come to town as much because of the pandemic that's going on. And it's not that you have to come to town to be knowledgeable, but as far as billboards and signs, I know a lot of our county coordinators right now are putting out signs that are both in Spanish and in English on how important the census is and how everyone needs to be counted. We're going to touch base a little bit later on and in what we're trying to do to reach people, but there is hard to count areas, and we're trying to identify those areas and get the word out.
So what can you do? The most important thing you can do to help all of Nacogdoches County is complete your census. It takes about 5 minutes, like Lonnie said. If you're single, maybe a minute more, or for a spouse and each child. Then use your circle of influence to encourage others. Your workers, your employees, your co-workers, friends, family, church family to complete their census. You can speak out, let them know why the census is so important, that we all love Nacogdoches. And today, when we fill out the census, we can leave a real legacy. Our efforts today for a complete census count will have an impact on our community for at least 10 years. And we have so many opportunities with our employees. We can go to DetCOG.org and download resources and information about the census. And one other hard to count group that we have predominantly here in Nacogdoches is younger folks, people under the age of 30 that have never completed the census because they live with their mom and dad. So let's make an effort also to reach out to those folks that are under 30 in your weekly meetings at your business. You can share all about the social media aspect of the census. Michele will speak to that.
Yeah, one of the things that we encourage everyone to do is share posts with good information. There are a lot of links out there that aren't accurate, but if you're looking for good information about the census, you can look right to DB's Texas Council of Governments Facebook page. You can also look at the Nacogdoches County Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. Share your post, share the information that we have out there, and let folks know how this matters to you specifically, and encourage other people to do the same. And once you've shared, keep sharing. There are so many opportunities, so many posts, so much information, and we can make that available to you offline if you have questions.
Yes, Nacogdoches, let's reach out and let us know what's working for you. We want your feedback. We're always looking for new ideas. To kind of give you an example of some ideas, you know, our ministerial alliance in Nacogdoches County has been really important because so many people during the pandemic have not been able to go to church or take practice in making church meetings. And they're doing, of course, as everybody knows, online sermons and online meetings. And they've been able to mention the census in their announcements, which has been a lot of help. Also in the food drives, we're able to put sticking stickers about the census for meal deliveries, actually on the little styrofoam plates, and that's been real good. But we do want to encourage you to, we are looking for new ideas. Anything that you could help us with or you think would be a good idea would be much appreciated.
And I think I'm wrapping this thing up. So I have a few little points in closing. Looks like I still have 5 minutes. I'll try not to use all of it. To make a few closing points. Number one, it's our money. We need to get it back. We all pay taxes. If we don't get our fair share of the funding back from Washington, it just means that the tax dollars you and I are paying are going to support health care, Medicaid, law enforcement, variety of other programs in other communities and other states. The only way we can be sure we get our share of the money back that we pay in is to be sure we're all counted in this census. I would urge you, don't take anything or anybody for granted. either Angela or Michele, one, I think it was Angela a while ago, mentioned about 30-year-olds. I would look at a young professional. They're all around us, especially in a college town like Nacogdoches. I'd look at a 30-year-old young professional man or woman and think, well, we don't need to worry about them. They're savvy. They keep up with what's going on. You know, they're online all the time. They'll do their census. Don't assume that, because that 30-year-old who now maybe owns or manages a local business, they've never had to do the census before. 10 years ago, they were probably in college and they were counted under their mom or dad's household, and the parent filled out the census form. So we've got a lot of young professionals who are out on their own now with families that have never had the experience of having to complete a census form. And so don't take for granted some of the people you least likely expect need to be reminded and encouraged to complete the census. I want to mention that, you know, our whole region is hard to count. Hard to count populations are elderly populations, minority populations, people living in poverty, people living in rural areas. We just check box after box after box. We have friends and neighbors who are suspicious of the government. Heck, I work for the government and I'm suspicious of the government. But let me tell you, let's not let politics get in the way of getting an accurate count in our 2020 census. The census is one of the very few things that the U.S. Constitution requires the federal government to do. We can complain all day long that we don't like the federal government doing this or doing that, but if we believe in the Constitution, which most of us profess to do, this is in the Constitution. It's required to be done. And as citizens, we're required by law to comply and participate. So let's not let politics get in the way. Let's not take anything or anybody for granted. Like it was stated earlier, the most important thing you can do is be sure that you and your family have been counted in the 2020 census. The next most important thing is reach out through your church, your PTA, your business contacts, your family, your circle of friends, your Facebook friends, wherever you conduct your social life, online or in person, and influence that circle of people around you of how important it is we all get counted in 2020. It's services, it's dollars. We're in a region that needs this help the most because we are historically an economically distressed region. We need the help most, yet we have most of the hard to count population. So it's an ironic twist of fate, but there's nothing an individual citizen can do, in my opinion. If you want to support your community and your neighbors and your family, then be counted in this 2020 census. Thank you all for listening. And if you haven't already done it, 2020census.gov. Go there right now.